Sick of getting blisters? Stop slipping and just be comfortable with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Great fit, great comfort, lots of grip, and an even better price. Available now at puregripsocks.com.
Legend 9 or Legend 10? Kangaroo leather or synthetic? These are the questions that longtime Tiempo fans are trying to answer. Stick with Nike and go along with the tech-forward full synthetic approach of the Legend 10, or look elsewhere from the Tiempo line because you just can't beat natural kangaroo leather. I'll do my best to break down the differences and similarities between the two and ultimately decide which Tiempo is better, leather or synthetic. And really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2023. Given that it's been almost 2 years since Nike launched the Legend 9 Elite, as we've seen pretty much with everything, prices have gone up. However, the $230 retail price of the Legend 9 remains intact for the Legend 10, which is a good thing, but also something that a lot of people are of the opinion is Nike cutting costs because synthetic is cheaper than natural leather. Whether or not that's actually true, I guess we'll never know, but I will say I do appreciate the price staying the same, given that pretty much all the top end models from both Nike and Adidas at this point are $250+. With that in mind, if you're firm in your belief that a synthetic Tiempo should cost less, you can opt for the Tiempo Legend 10 Pro, the first takedown model in the new lineup that, as I talked about in my review, is virtually identical to the Elite model to the point where it's probably not worth it to spend $230 on these when you can get the Pro for $140 and have 99% of the same experience. Just something to be aware of if you're at all interested in the new Tiempo. Which, by the way, you can pick up all of these boots below their normal retail prices by way of exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the links down below. The design of the upper on the Legend 9 Elite was definitely Nike dialing back the technology focus that had kind of become a major part of the Tiempo series from Legend 6 through 8, where you could argue that the technology incorporated outside of the kangaroo leather upper became more of a focus than the leather itself. Not the case with this football boot. Everything that you see here in pearl white is super soft premium kangaroo leather, with all of these raised areas actually being a really thin memory foam insert to actually increase the dampening sensation when making contact with the ball, with the micro texturing kind of sitting on the surface that is supposed to add additional grip but ultimately doesn't do much of anything. For the most part, the finish of the upper has been left relatively slick, as you would expect from a traditional pair of kangaroo leather football boots. What I love about the Legend 9 and what I think really made it stand out from the crowd when it was a current model was the thickness of the upper itself. The padded touch was more significant than what you would find from just about any other modern football boot, leather or not, where it seems like everything these days has trended towards going as thin as possible. This gave you that nice padded feel against your foot and that nice dampened touch on the ball, with of course the softness that you can really only get from natural kangaroo leather. The fact that the leather spans pretty much the entire upper as well was very much appreciated, and in terms of just giving you that nice premium kangaroo leather football boot experience, there's really nothing not to like about the Legend 9 Elite. It is one of the best Tiempo models Nike has ever made. As for the upper of the Legend 10 Elite, it takes the Tiempo in a direction that we've never seen before, where there will no longer be a natural or kangaroo leather upper option on any variation of this boot. Instead, the entire line has gone full synthetic, and that looks to be what Nike is planning on doing moving forward as well. So instead of kangaroo leather, you're going to find a material called Fly Touch Plus, which very much feels like a continuation of Kangalite synthetic, previously seen most famously on the CTR 360 lineup, but we had seen Kangalite previously on Tiempo models as well, in addition to kangaroo leather, and exclusively on the upper on the Legend 3 Elite in particular, although as far as feel is concerned, those were definitely not the best. This, however, definitely feels like a major step up from any Kangalite synthetic Nike has previously used on a pair of football boots, and Nike is even making the bold claim saying that their new synthetic on the Legend 10 is softer than any natural kangaroo leather. I can't say that I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. However, it does a phenomenal job at simulating the pliability and kind of melty sensation of well broken in natural leather. in that regard, I was super impressed. And from a touch perspective, this material is significantly thinner than the Kangaroo leather found on the Legend 9 Elite. However, it doesn't necessarily lack in that dampening sensation that, again, you would historically only be able to get from a natural leather material. Is it truly a replacement for Kangaroo leather? Not necessarily. And the reason why I say that is because you're still not going to get the stretch and kind of moldability of a traditional leather football boot. Because of the more structured feel of this upper, it does feel a little bit more locked in and responsive and arguably speed boot-esque compared to a pair of Tiempo Legend 9s, which may or may not be your thing. But in terms of coming as close to leather as possible, I'd say it's kind of an 8 out of 10 job. And in terms of what it's lacking as far as positives that you would get from a Kangaroo leather material, it arguably makes up for in terms of giving you that little bit more locked in responsive sensation and decreasing the overall weight of the football boot. Not to mention, this really requires no maintenance whatsoever. Not to say that the Legend 9 was a high maintenance boot. Most modern leather boots aren't. And you also get the micro texturing on the surface, which ultimately doesn't do anything, but ACC all conditions control returns as a feature on the Legend 10 Elite. And I'm not saying that it's the reason for the grippiness on the upper, because we'll get into that in just a second, but you definitely will find on this launch black colorway in particular that there is a ton of additional grip on the ball that you simply do not get with the Legend 9 Elite and its Kangaroo leather upper. So if you like having that additional grip with a thin leather-like dampened sensation on the ball, I can't say that anything really even comes close to the Legend 10 Elite. And if added grip isn't your thing, you can opt for the Women's World Cup orange colorway with more of this matte finish where the surface is left relatively slick, more along the lines of the grip levels that you would get from a traditional Kangaroo leather upper. In other words, it looks like we will get some variation in terms of grip on the ball from colorway to colorway. But which one is better when it comes to feel? Well, if you prefer a thinner upper, I definitely think you're going to like the Legend 10, whereas if you prefer a more padded feel, you really can't replace the natural Kangaroo leather of the Legend 9. But I will say, for being full synthetic, the Legend 10 is very convincing as a pair of leather-like football boots, to the point where I think there will be plenty of people buying this new Legend 10 and not even realizing that they've taken away the natural leather upper. Perhaps because of the lack of a focus on new technologies, one of the major marketing focuses of the Tiempo Legend 9 when it first dropped was this being the lightest Tiempo that Nike had ever made. However, the new Legend 10 is even a little bit lighter. So both in the same size, 9.5 US, we're gonna throw them on the scale, starting off with the Legend 9 Elite, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.3 ounces, the equivalent of 207 grams, which is very lightweight for a football boot of this type, with Kangaroo leather this thick and with that much leather on the upper. So really impressive. Then we'll throw on the Legend 10 Elite, and you can see that they weigh in even less, 7.1 ounces, the equivalent of 201 grams. So you're talking ultimately about a very small weight difference between these two, but technically pound for pound, or I guess gram for gram, the Legend 10 Elite is that little bit lighter. One thing that Nike didn't mess with is the sole plate and stud pattern of the Legend 10, which, as you can see side by side with the Legend 9, the layout of the stud pattern pretty much hasn't changed at all. The studs have gone towards being fully conical rather than having the most subtle straight edge on them in the forefoot. Studs in the heel remain exactly the same. So from a traction standpoint, there is virtually no difference between these two in terms of what you're going to notice. And as far as the sole plates go, both plastic sole plates. They do talk about these little cutouts in the Legend 10 to relieve stud pressure. I didn't find that stud pressure was an issue with either of these boots, and based on what I can tell, these holes or these cutouts are not noticeable whatsoever. So as far as sole plates and stud patterns go, while technically different, they feel and perform identically. The fit and feel on feet is definitely going to be the biggest difference between these two football boots, but that is not to say that they are dissimilar. Both are very comfortable, both uppers are extremely pliable, and once broken in, I think they are two of the most comfortable football boots that are currently available from Nike. As far as the natural leather of the Legend 9 is concerned, it of course is that little bit softer, especially after some wear time, and because it's natural leather, it does have that ability to stretch and mold to the shape of your feet, much more so than what you're going to find from the Legend 10 Elite, where its synthetic upper is going to hold its base shape significantly better. That's not to say that they're not going to stretch at least a little bit. Pretty much any football boot will, regardless of the material that it's made out of. But in terms of giving you that molded custom fit, more of that is going to come from the natural leather of the Legend 9 Elite. However, this material, again, remarkably pliable, very soft against your foot, and surprisingly comfortable. Another big difference between these two is going to be the heel construction. You're definitely going to find that the heel is tighter on the Legend 10 compared to the Legend 9, which just opts for a more traditional construction. This is more of that low-cut kind of Flyknit construction that we've seen on the Mercurial series, as well as a bunch of other boots from Nike. Both very comfortable, but just a little bit different. So again, personal preference. I prefer the traditional construction of the Legend 9, but I could see a lot of people preferring the feel of the heel construction on the Legend 10. And then there's the overall shaping of these two football boots. It definitely feels like the Legend 10 is a little bit more narrow all the way through, particularly in the toe box and forefoot area, especially because you're not going to get that extra stretch. The shape of the Legend 9, in my opinion, is pretty much perfect. It's a good amount of width and roundness to the toe box area, where this is definitely a lot more tapered. Not necessarily in a bad way, but for my feet in particular, I just find the Legend 9 shape to be a little bit more accommodating, so something to be aware of. For a wider foot type, I definitely think the Legend 9 would be better, although both of these boots definitely will fit most people. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So regardless of which version that you go for, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, this is actually a much tougher choice than I was honestly anticipating, and me being somebody that tends to prefer natural leather football boots over knits or synthetics 9 out of 10 times, it's just something that really surprises me, and I guess that is credit to Nike and the Legend 10 Elite. What they have here in a full synthetic Tiempo, as horrible as that sounds to say, they have actually done an excellent job at creating something that feels remarkably leather-like. With that said, it's still not quite the real thing. I don't think we'll ever have a true replacement for natural leather, certainly not premium kangaroo leather. And if you really are somebody that loves the feel of leather football boots, loves the moldability of a natural leather football boot, certainly one with as simple an upper design as the Legend 9 Elite, there is no replacement for this. And given the choice between these two, just being such a fan of leather football boots and ultimately preferring the overall shape of the Legend 9 over the Legend 10, given the choice between these two, I'd be a Legend 9 Elite guy all day, but I would not be unhappy to wear the Legend 10. However, in making that choice, I think there are plenty of people that are going to love the Legend 10 Elite. It is a lot less compromised than I was honestly expecting, and for those that were big fans of the CTR 360 series and perhaps have transitioned into the Tiempo line since the CTR 360 was discontinued, I think there is a lot to like about the Legend 10 Elite, and I think 9 out of 10 people that try these out, even if you're a leather football boot fan, will really enjoy their experience with them.